And welcome everybody. Thanks for joining in today. Hello, my name is Joshua Jones, and as people are getting in here and getting settled, feel free to unmute and speak up anytime, but we've got a big audience, so try not to derail us too much. But you can type into the chat anytime. Type into the chat with questions and comments. I'll have some stopping points where I'll check in there and we'll see how things are going. This is a little bit about me and my company. I founded the Webinerd initially in 2014, but relaunched it again in May of last year. Now we have 8 employees. Whew, it's a busy industry. I've been in the industry since 2007. I focus on online events or virtual events, including meetings, webinars, and well, anything else you can think of, including virtual trade shows. Worked for providers in the past. I cut my teeth at Citrix and GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar, starting in 2007 to 2014, and was at Zoom for the last 4 years until May of last year. So a lot of experience in the industry, hopefully a lot of insight to share with you. And here's a little bit about our agenda. Now I'm going to try not to rely on just slides the whole time because I want to give you some best practices by demonstration if I get the opportunity. So I will stop the slides. We will get into discussion mode. Again, type into the chat, and when we're in that discussion mode, I'll ask you to feel free to unmute. Again, down at the bottom left, you can turn on your webcams and explore the tool a little bit. You can't break anything. I'm the only one here that's the host. So mess with the tools, see what you can see there. What's the difference between, or what's really different about meeting virtually compared to meeting in person? There are a lot of advantages that I'll go through. There are opportunities that you may not have, especially for smaller organizations to compete kind of in this level playing field. And you have the opportunity to make a lot of evergreen content that you can use into the future as much as possible. So we'll talk about some perspectives on that. All right, there's that webcam fixed up. I knew it was a laptop. I could tell. And then making a personal connection online or a virtual event, making that personal connection is really about using the technology well and showing up well for your participants when they join you. So we'll talk about some best practices there with regard to audio, video, and connectivity. A lot of hopefully discussion throughout this, though we do have 71 people here. That can be a little challenging to get into discussion mode, but I'll do my best. So down at the bottom left, again, unmute, turn on your webcam if you want. Find those tools along the bottom of the Zoom interface. Again, not dissimilar from other online event platforms or virtual event platforms. So get used to the tools. And now I'd like you to open up the chat and just put in a few comments. They can be short, just brief comments. What do you usually do? Provide me some information. What do you usually do at those in-person meetings? How do you wow people? How do you get them there? What do you do and what do you provide? And when do they take place? Any of these comments, you don't have to give me a list of everything that you see here, but type me a few items into the chat, if you will. Okay, I'm waiting. There's more people joining in. And I'm going to take some of these comments, I'm going to try to put them up on a whiteboard so that we can refer to them later and see if we can explore some of these things. Eric starting off strong with bringing food, which is not something you can necessarily do directly in an online or virtual world. But yeah, you can get some gift certificates and so forth. Okay, I'm going to switch up my screen share and I'm just going to share a whiteboard, which you should see now. And I'm going into text mode and let's see if I can copy and paste these items here. Oh, come on, Zoom, let me do it. There we go. All right, this is working. Sorry, it takes a little time, I'm clicking. Giving you time to put some more comments in there. And what I'm really looking for here are things that you really can't do virtually. If you come up with anything that totally stumps me, that you cannot replace or kind of innovate around with regard to online meetings, I'm going to be bummed out. But that's okay. Oh,
Joshua, it's
that
Eric.
one's a duplicate comment because it was private at first. Go ahead, yeah.
Is this whiteboard part of Zoom or is it something else you're using?
This is a Zoom function, but I essentially could do this in PowerPoint if I wanted to live edit a slide or a document through screen sharing.
Okay.
But this particular whiteboard feature is a function of Zoom, and it has drawing tools. You know, I can put like squares and boxes and circles and so forth. But just using it to grab some notes here. Let me erase these items. Okay, so I am going to leave this whiteboard here, but I'm going to stop the share on it. And now, just out of sheer paranoia, I'm going to bring it up. Oh, good, it's still there. All right. So the reason I wanted to do that is, again, to maybe see if we can highlight some areas that might be a little challenging to replicate in that online experience. Some things that you may need to really just change your perspective on. So thanks for taking part in that first little activity. And I also did get you to start typing into the chat whether you wanted to or not. So just highlighting that, stimulating that conversation in the chat, because the chat is a great way for people to communicate some side thoughts and so forth, share contact information real quick. There's a lot of reasons to use chat in your meetings. So sometimes it's a good idea to get people using it early. As soon as you get somebody to type in and ask a question, and as soon as you start answering questions, you're going to get more questions, whether you're working with people one-on-one in small groups or in large groups like this. So I'm getting a lot of chats added in here, and I'll add them back to our list. But what's really different about virtual meetings? Let's take a little perspective in the history. Back around 2000 is when they started becoming viable. But really all it was a telephone conference line. Remember those? Still use them? Are they fun? Telephone conference line and some screen sharing. So this is the evolution from telephone conference line to sharing out a PDF so that everybody can follow along. We're on page 4 now. Think of like finance meetings. Those still happen. Okay, so that's all the way back 20 years ago. And around 2005 is when VoIP came in, and VoIP is voice over internet protocol. What that is using computer instead of telephone audio. So we're sending our voice signal through the computer. And it looks like most people, if you look down the participant list, there are a handful of telephone icons there. And if I go all the way to the bottom of the list, oh, I don't see any just telephone icons or just telephone numbers. Everybody has a name. But as you can see, Zoom here calls out whether people are on telephone or computer audio for me. So VoIP, computer audio, webinars come in. Webinar, we're hosting a meeting today. Everybody can speak, share their webcam, potentially share content. It's a collaborative space. Webinars are more like a lecture space, if you will, like an auditorium, where you have attendees that are there to listen and view the session, but not really to speak. They can type in usually. So give or take, around 2005 is when webinars really hit the scene and became a very popular tool and kind of escalated the adoption of virtual tools. Around 2010 is when video conferencing goes consumer. And I say it like that because prior to that, you could spend tens of thousands of dollars or more and install a video conferencing system that you could use with very, very few people that also had video conferencing systems. But around 2010, and escalating from there is when video conferencing really came into it. So video started popping up with the slides and the audio. And Zoom, for instance, came around in 2013, they launched, I believe, and Microsoft Teams not far behind that with their new platform, which essentially wiped out Skype and replaced it. So Teams is kind of the new Skype. Don't expect to see Skype very often. And then what's going on now? Well, now we have a lot of dynamic tools that allow sharing of even pre-recorded content and more dynamic, rich content. So much more accessible, easier to get these things going. Let's talk about some of these advantages. So we've got the advantages, we've got a level playing field, we've got evergreen content, and first off, I think the advantages of virtual events are efficiency. So regardless, I'm saving a ton of time by doing this virtually. If I had to travel to Canada to meet with all of you and get you all to travel into the same space, this wouldn't have happened. Not at all. Not a chance that we'd be doing this today. So efficiency, time, travel, cost, it's all on the side of virtual events. Reliability, it doesn't snow in virtual events. Okay, you don't have hurricanes in virtual events or earthquakes. Now, you may have some people that are affected by natural disasters, power outages, and internet outages. Those are still a thing. Okay, so there are some reliability concerns with regard to virtual events, but it's not like natural disasters. You know, usually there's a workaround. Usually there's something you can do to get connected, even if you're having, connectivity trouble. Hop on your mobile device, start the session from there if you can. Accessibility. Zoom is our, online meeting platform. Sorry, I talk about Zoom a lot, but, in general, online meeting platforms are incredibly accessible. Think about all the trade shows that you've been to, and I soapbox on this a lot. Do you see people with mobility issues at those trade shows very often? Do you see people with, autoimmune conditions that may prevent them from gathering in large groups? Wink. In trade shows. You're not going to see a lot of those people there, but online virtual events are incredibly accessible to them. Anybody can get in, okay, as long as they have a computer. So accessibility is a huge thing I like to remind people about with online events. And then you've got data. For your in-person events, I'm sure you spend a lot of time, making notes of who showed up. Maybe you're sending email confirmations. You're capturing, I'm sure, information in some way. But by having every single one of you joined into this online meeting today, this one via Zoom, I can download an attendee report and I can see when you showed up and when you left. I can see your email from that. I'm not going to use it for anything in this case, but in your situation, having that reporting is really invaluable. You can go back and check these reports, download these lists, add them to your contacts list, make sure they're on your mailing lists and so forth. So really collecting that data, super easy and efficient within online meetings, of course. So huge advantage there. Questions and comments about that little section before we move into leveling the playing field? I do want to get interactive where I can with you folks. We've got an hour and I don't have a ton of slides. All right, I guess that's pretty straightforward. Type into the chat, unmute yourself, speak up. Don't worry about interrupting me. Leveling the playing field. A few things to talk about here. First of all, the cost of entry. It's pretty much the same for everybody. There's only so much that you're going to be able to do. You can only put so much money into developing your online content. So it's your marketing team. They're creating snappy content for you that looks fresh and draws people's attention in. So marketing's really involved, but you're not going to really need to haul out a bunch of gear. Okay, there's not going to be a giant flamethrower sitting in front of your virtual meeting or similar type of equipment that you need to compete with or that you can really roll out yourself. So think about that content that you're going to be providing. Think about those deliverables. Think about the offers that you can make to people for showing up. Now, in the level playing field that you have essentially here, keep in mind in this virtual trade show type of environment, well, just like a real trade show, you can tell people to go talk to Bob from such and such company and go talk to Sue from this company because people will be around. But keep in mind, this is a great opportunity for maybe some of those smaller competitors to really come forward because again, you don't have the giant chainsaw down the aisle making all the noise or whatever it may be. Okay, so you can take those steps to get that attention and bring people to your virtual booth. So talk to that marketing team, find out what your content is, what assets do you need, what can you use to maybe add some polish to those items so that they're visually appealing in an online environment. They provide enough information quickly without overwhelming people with too much text on the slide and so forth. You really want to keep things at a glance accessible as much as possible. And this slide's been up here way too long, I can tell. So keep things dynamic, keep them changing as much as you can. Here in the States, I make a joke about our C-SPAN channel. C-SPAN is where you can watch, it's government access essentially. It's really boring because nothing happens on the screen. You know, very little like camera shot way in the distance, people milling about. It's gotten better. But by keeping things moving on the screen, you can keep people's attention. And another way to keep things moving on the screen, of course, is to switch off your screen sharing. You know, you're face to face now. I can look right in my camera and you feel like I'm staring right at you. So I'm making that eye contact with you. And when I'm ready to, I can return to my slides. Evergreen content. What does that really mean? So evergreen trees, they're always green, even in the worst winters, hopefully. We'll not get into climate change. But evergreen content is content that is always useful for you. It's always green. So in this virtual environment, you have an opportunity through recording within the platforms that you're using to really build up and bolster this evergreen content that you may have, which you can repurpose. Bunch of R words here. You can repurpose and put it on YouTube. You know, hey, here's a meeting that we did. We got permission from this customer to put it up because we talked about some great things. And now it's on YouTube, or now it's on, you know, your social media channels or embedded in your website. So great opportunity to record content from meetings, even do some video editing potentially and take out little snippets. Here's what so-and-so had to say about our project at this place. So quick testimonials and so forth can come out of these meetings very easily. You just want to make sure that you're getting people's permission to share, of course, if you're doing that recorded content. Now, maybe there's a conversation that happens in the meeting that really spurs on some good thought and maybe some best practices that need to be shared. You know, using those conversations as a motivator to create content. You know, we just had a great conversation with Sue. I guess it's Sue and Bob today. We just had a great conversation with Sue at such and such place. We talked about this. Here's this big old blog post, or here's this, you know, white paper that developed from that conversation. Everything is actionable if you look at it the right way. So you can repurpose this content, this meeting information, and you can replicate it. Let's say a meeting goes really well, but you don't have permission to share that person on video or that recording specifically. Stage it, do it again. You know, people are fine with that. People are used to polished content if you're going to do that. But keep in mind, when you're live in person, don't worry about being too polished. People like the human element of meeting like they would in person. You know, people goof up, they stumble in person. Online, expect to do the same thing. But with your evergreen content, this is your chance to put that extra shine on it. Okay, and then replacing. Replacing is important because, you know, sometimes evergreen content does die. Product lines change, new services become available, and for some reason that content goes out of date. But most of it is probably good. So maybe you can replace that content, update it as it goes. So having that thought in mind about this content, it's not just ephemeral. It's not this one and done situation. Think about developing this content in a way that it's going to remain viable for you for a long time, or just require some updates here and there to improve. All right, I'm just looking over at chat. I'm not seeing any questions. Any comments on this section? like the big differences about online meetings. We'll get into what you folks said in just a minute, and we'll see if we can pick apart some specific items like shaking hands.
So Joshua, it's Eric Anderson here. Yeah, I mean, it's a great shift. I mean, we're talking about a complete shift of concept of how we're doing business and how we're doing things. I mean, there's stuff that you never thought about, the repurposing and retooling and editing and resharing things that, yeah, I guess we could do that, couldn't we? I mean, it's because it just hasn't been part of our normal day-to-day thought process of business. I know that if I created a, a paragraph in an item and I shared it online, I could take that paragraph and I'd put it into an email and I'd share it here, share it there, and keep chopping up things and put it in reports.
Right.
Forget that the conversation you and I are having today is another piece that we could do,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then and your recording today is of great value, right? Telling and instructing people how to change their thought process. Now we're going to have that on SIMSA's site. We'll have that available. I mean, there's a huge asset here. This is one of two. I mean, it's a great thing, and I think this shift of doing things is important. Like, what are the assets that are current, the new assets that are available now that we never thought of?
Right. And so this conversation dovetails quickly into social media and creating that network online. So if your teams haven't really gotten into social yet, maybe that's something that needs to be added in order to kind of complement this content generation that you might have going on soon. So yeah, definitely some things to consider, and a big shift from in person, from the information that you gave me, Eric, these in-person trade shows. It is a big shift. So hopefully taking some time to explore these other tools and options will give you a little bit of a leg up on jumping into this new phase. Most experts don't expect COVID to really go away until probably late next year to 2021. And even beyond that, we don't really expect in-person large events to come back for quite some time, given people's mood and nerves and so forth. So I think we can expect to be doing this virtually for quite a bit. Andrea, I hope I said that right. The virtual trade show presence and setup and so forth, um, Eric can maybe speak to that a little bit, and we're looking more at best practices around, how you present yourself and so forth in these virtual trade shows, in these meetings that you're going to be hosting. But for the second session, maybe we can add some more content about that setup and what that's going to look like. I know we have some notes on that already.
Yep.
Very good. So stick around for part 2, folks. All right, so let's have another glance at these best practices. Again, we're recording, but if you want to take a screenshot or anything, if you want to grab that to kind of have on your mind as the next few days go by, something to think about. And in the next section, we're going to talk about making that personal connection virtually. And for me, this is really about best practices with the technology. And this is ubiquitous with any platform. Okay, if people can't hear you well, if people can't see you well, and if your content is just not hitting home for them, you're not going to see much of a turnaround from that experience. Okay, not likely for that experience to escalate to further business because you've made a bad impression. Okay, so we need to avoid making a bad impression. How do we do it? I'm using a headset today. Let me switch over to my built-in, or the microphone that's built into my webcam. Do you hear the difference? Okay, immediately it should sound way different. And if I start typing, not even typing very loud, mechanical keyboard would be clunk, 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 clunk. Okay, any background noise in this space is going to be terrible sounding. But if I switch over to my headset microphone, well, this is a very directional microphone. Let me switch off my camera. I'm sorry, my screen share. This is a very directional microphone. So it's only picking up audio from where it should. So if I'm making noise, you're not going to hear much of that background noise. Maybe a little bit, but not much. Not compared to that microphone that was in my webcam. So the headset microphone is going to drastically reduce background noise. So if you're in a noisy environment and you don't have a headset, you're going to be driving people crazy. But if you have a headset, even in a noisy environment, a busy environment, but even in a quiet environment, let me switch back to my webcam microphone again. And when I'm talking in this space, or if I just go, okay, you're hearing a lot of reverb. Okay, you're hearing the sound of my voice bounce around this room, which I need to put some stuff on the walls, a little new space. You're hearing my voice bounce around this room and then hit the microphone. Okay, so directly from my voice, but then ricocheting all around the room is tons of noise, all getting collected by this microphone. Not if I switch over to my headset. Okay, so all that sound bouncing around my room is not being picked up. So even if you're not in a loud space, you may not have control over that space. If it's a very large room, no sound isolation going on, it could become very, very loud, even if it's just one person talking. So there's a little bit about using a headset, and I will just say USB headset is my favorite. I have a cord on mine. This cord even has a little mute and unmute switch on it in the middle, which is pretty convenient if needed. And if I have trouble with this headset, the only thing I need to do is unplug it and plug it back in. Then I may need to check my audio settings with the platform that I'm using to make sure that I have the appropriate device connected. So today we're in Zoom. If you look down at the bottom, you'll see that little up arrow next to your microphone or next to your webcam. That's where you could change devices if you have multiple devices connected. You can do that in other platforms as well. So making sure you have that best audio quality. Using a USB headset will be the warmest representation of your voice. Now you can get an expensive wireless headset or expensive Bluetooth headset and they'll sound good, but they tend to thin out the sound. The sound is being tossed through the air and then over the internet. So they narrow the frequency range. So they take off some of the low end and some of the high end. And so you don't get an accurate representation of the voice, not as close, because it's wireless. Okay, like radio signals. Your favorite album doesn't sound the same on a radio as it does, like radio station, as it does if you're listening to the album itself, because they're thinning out the sound to transmit it. Compression. Some tips going in. Ryan has a tip about background noise suppression. Right, yep. Yeah, some great tools. Zoom has some of that built in. I believe Teams also has some built in to the platform. So yeah, there are tools that you can use to enhance that, especially if you're in a noisy environment. Let's say you need to do a demonstration from a machine shop or your manufacturing floor. You can do that. Get somebody on a mobile device out there on the floor. They're joined into your meeting, cameras pointing at what you want them to. Get hands-on, you can. But all of that noise you're going to need to deal with. So using a really good headset or using softwares that can help suppress that background noise will be really crucial. Yeah, good old NVIDIA, they're making some waves these days. Big company. How do you get people to attend a virtual trade show? I think we'll talk more about that next time. But yeah, I think in your comment there, you have some good examples of, enticements to get people there. But we'll talk a little bit more about that. Let me go back to our slides. And we're just going to have a similar comparison about video. Okay, right now I'm using an external webcam on my primary computer here, but I'm going to turn on the webcam on my secondary computer that I have joined in, and then I'm going to find it, and then I'm going to spotlight it. Okay, the reason I need to spotlight it is because I don't have it connected to audio. My audio is coming through the other computer, so this computer wouldn't jump forward. But you can tell, let me, you can see my green wall. So if I'm, essentially standing against the same background here, same light, but you can see the quality is way different. Okay, the quality of this built-in webcam on my other computer is way below the quality of my other webcam, which is on my primary computer, which you should be seeing now. So same space, same lighting, different cameras. So those built-in cameras on your laptops, amazing technology. They're so tiny. But because they're so tiny, the lens is small. They don't pick up as much light. They're not capturing the space in the same way that a high definition camera would. So you'll see terms like 4K camera, 1080p camera, so forth. You just want to see the term HD camera. As long as it's a high definition camera, it'll work great for your video conferencing. Now, a 1080p camera is not something you want to film a movie on, but it is great for video conferencing. So, okay, these webcams, for instance, I'm using the Logitech Brio today. I'll type that into the chat real quick. And I'll type the name of the headset I'm using. It's actually not that expensive. So the Sennheiser SC30 is my headset, and the webcam is the Logitech Brio. Okay, so the Logitech Brio is a little bit higher end as far as webcams that just sit on top of your display. You know, it's the type that has a little clip. You've probably seen them before. So they're around the $200 mark, if I recall correctly, but they are, when you hold them, you can feel the weight. This is a much higher quality device than your typical webcam is, so handle with care. Don't bang it around. But they do have HD cameras that you can purchase for way below the $100 price point that will get you where you need to go. I like the Brio. I got it for free, so but I have purchased others since then. So Logitech Brio, Sennheiser SC30. This one's only $40 on Amazon right now, or similar retailers. I bought 6 of them just in case, and I have one left in the package. So they do get good use, and you can get them really affordably in this case. I like the Sennheiser brand because they've been making microphones and speakers for ages. Trustworthy company, dependable products. And you don't have to, you know, break the bank to get a $40 headset and a $100 or $200 webcam if you really want to up it. So the quality difference, hopefully you noticed, is pretty extreme. And you know, this is one of the biggest parts about trying to make that in-person connection, is having a quality connection with your participants. And then a little bit more information on the content. So we were talking about making that evergreen content, but some best practices about making your content pop on the screen. We're not in a huge convention hall. I don't have a giant LED wall. I want to devise my content as if people are going to be looking at it on a mobile device. Seriously. So make that text big. Don't fill up that slide with a lot of text. You know, there's a 5 and 5 rule or a 3 and 5 rule. It depends on how you want to look at it. But it says have no more than 5 bullets on a slide and no more than 5 words per bullet point. Hey, are you going to do that all the time? I hope not. Don't be that rigid with yourself, but use it as a best practice. If that slide is starting to get too long, break it up into more than one slide. Toss an image in there that's going to help people visualize that content. You know, hopefully when you're thinking about evergreen content, you'll think of that little picture of trees that I put in there, or leveling the playing field. Oh, there's the level. Remember he was talking, oh yeah. So using those images to help with retention and recognition of the content and the topic. I didn't have time to put a ton of images here today, but hopefully the slides are, you know, attractive enough that you can stand to look at them. Okay, so we don't want this big white space with a bunch of text on it. You know, get a template, put a background in there, make sure that your logo or your brand is present on every slide. And your content that you're presenting will be more impactful. It'll stick with people. Okay, I think that's all I did for slides today because I don't like relying on slides all the time. I think slides are not the most effective way to make a connection with people. Slides come between me and other people. So again, I'd like to encourage you, if you'd like to, you can turn on your webcam. Let's answer some of these questions that you may have. And let's go back to our whiteboard. There are a few more items that did come in. And I like Kevin's comment here. Kevin, I can totally relate. We don't get to hug anymore. Showing that you're a good listener. Shake hands, exchange business cards. Giving out swag. Or is it swag? Is there an SH in there? Who knows? Handshakes, in-person eye contact, active listening. It's like you're speaking my language here. Okay, so let's go through now. If you folks want to have a little fun with this, feel free to go up to the top of the Zoom interface. You'll see annotation, or you'll see view options, and then you can go to annotate. And you'll see that there's a stamp. Okay, I'll be able to see who's writing on the screen, by the way. I can see your name. So have a little fun, but it's a controlled environment, folks. There you go, Tabitha. So do me a favor and find those stamps under annotation, and I want you to put an X next to anything that you just don't think you can do virtually, that you can't do online. So grab that X, and then, so giving out swag, hugging people, shaking hands, bringing food. Yeah, a bunch of X's, pile them up there. Try to put one next to each item that you're selecting, and we'll see, what has more weight. It's cool. I can see everybody's little name popping up briefly as they put up their little X. So what are we doing here? I mean, why are we doing this? Am I just being gimmicky? Yeah, kind of. But the reason is there's a way to, through screen sharing, through this whiteboard tool, for us to collaborate a little bit. What are the strengths and weaknesses that we're talking about in this conversation? Let's give it some weight. What are we most concerned about? So let me put these few things up on the screen, and you tell me what's going on. What are you thinking about? What else could I use to do this? I could use polling questions to figure out what's my audience really concerned about. I could ask a bunch of questions via polling or even via chat. Hey, put some thoughts into the chat like we started. That's going to start that communication going early. So it's not just about, only the technology and your content, but the way you're approaching it and the way you decide to encourage that interaction and engagement. I believe Teams does have a whiteboard functionality. I will have to double check on that. I know they have annotation. So though I'm using a whiteboard, I'm pretty certain they have annotation. I need to sharpen up on Teams, honestly. It's been a little while. But there are tools that you can use as whiteboards that are not built into the platform. There are whiteboarding tools out there. You could even use PowerPoint, just a blank slide. PowerPoint has some drawing tools built into it. I like Zooms because it has the text on the screen and so forth. So yeah, a lot of X's next to hugging and shaking hands and bringing food. Okay, so what about that second one though? Oh, we're still getting some X's. I like this. This is working out. So let's talk about bringing food. How do you treat people? Now, Eric told me that there are, obviously some limitations on what you can do as far as spending cash on people, but we're not buying people steaks and hoping that they're spending their time with us so that they can get a steak, right? So that's kind of a plus and a minus to me. You're not spending money on a steak that somebody's just there to eat while they kind of listen to you. So you can potentially send them a gift certificate. Hey, thanks for dropping by. I'm going to send you a gift certificate for, whatever, or even just a gift card. Here's a $10 MasterCard gift, Visa, whatever you use. Here's a $10 gift card. Go get yourself some coffee and a snack and join me at this time. Or, thanks for joining me. On your way out, here's a gift card. Go grab yourself a snack. Thanks. I wish we could have had lunch together. It's really easy to do that now. Okay, people don't actually need to receive a hard copy of this little gift card. You can send it to them via email. Okay, there's a lot of tools out there. I mean, even if you just want to drop somebody a quick Venmo, people are using Venmo all the time these days. Yeah, thanks for joining us. We set aside a budget there since we couldn't buy you lunch, which we'd normally do. Here's 15 bucks or here's 20 bucks. Go buy some lunch. Have a great day. Think about us later when you're eating. So no, you can't really bring food, but you can still get it out there. We have groups that are using, I don't know about what you have available in your particular areas, but we have tools like Grubhub or Uber Eats or DoorDash is another one. But there are a lot of these apps and services out there now. I like that people are still messing with the drawing tools. Explore it a little, have some fun. Just try not to cover up the things I want to read. But there are a lot of services out there that deliver food. And you really want to make a personal connection with somebody, find out what their favorite restaurant is and get them a gift certificate specifically for that restaurant. That's something that you can easily do. Just one other data point that you need to collect. So no, you can't bring food in person, and you probably don't want to in a global pandemic. Donuts are not the best idea. But gift certificates and catering services and so forth abound. And you'd probably not be surprised to find that every popular restaurant in your area has found a way to deal with doing business these days, delivery and takeout and so forth. Okay, in person, the second item there, we've got eye contact. So I did tell you about eye contact. It's a little different. If I want to look at Eric right now, I need to look over here. He's over on the side of my screen. But if I want Eric to feel like I'm looking at him, I need to look straight into my webcam. And they just have a little light on them, typically, to tell you that they're on. It should have a little light, and you can just look right at that light. Now, if I'm having a one-on-one conversation with Eric, and I want to make sure that I'm seeing him front and center, well, then I want to make sure that I position Eric's webcam or his image just below my webcam as much as I can. So now when I slightly look down to see Eric's face, hopefully it still looks like I'm looking at my webcam.
Hmm.
So that's what we call virtual eye contact. It does take some getting used to. If you ever did one of those public speaking courses where it's like, hey, remember, you got to look up and make eye contact with one person and then drift over here. Well, now it's easier. Now you just have to look up to one place over and over again. But make sure that you're looking at the webcam. When other people start talking, well, then switch your vision to their face and try to keep their face next to your webcam as much as possible. Sometimes I'll take that Zoom window or other platforms and just resize it and make it real small so that the webcam that I'm looking at is tucked right underneath my camera that's capturing me. So making that virtual eye contact, it does take some practice. Give yourself some time. Ooh, my internet connection's getting flaky. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so eye contact, definitely still a thing. So think about how you're doing that. And open-ended questions, active listening, that was put in there a few times. Totally something you can do online. Nodding, visually confirming that you're taking in what they're saying. You don't have full body language though. You can't see my torso down, shoulders up for the most part. Unless I'm like one of those people that joins meetings from my bed, which I've seen. Not my favorite place to meet. You wouldn't do that in person, would you? But some of us are having to meet from, our bedrooms. Maybe that's where our desk, our office space is in our home. And so think about that. Get a wall behind you. I switched over to my other camera. I could give you a tour of the space I'm in, but I don't really need to. I'm just standing in front of this wall. That's great. I could put a piece of art up there, get a plant behind me. But that space that you're using, you can clean it up some, put the wall behind you, may not make your room look awesome. But as far as the active listening, if you're on camera, which you should be with your audience, that's going to allow you to achieve that. Open-ended questions, yeah, absolutely. You want to ask those. Not a challenge online. So we only got one X next to that one. Having a PowerPoint ready to make sure I touch on all the important points I want to discuss absolutely can be done online. Let me give that a big check. And then I'll put a big X over bring food, but we talked about other options. So I'll say check. Making up symbols now. Provide time for networking before and after the event. I like this. This is good. Um, there is that greeting period. Grab a snack, get yourself seated. Tell me a little bit about why you're here today. What brings you in? What are you interested in? That small talk is really important. So you don't have to launch straight into your presentation. As soon as they get in, don't hit them with the PowerPoint. Greet them, be on camera, encourage them to be on camera so that you can see how they're reacting. I see a lot of cameras off here today, guys. Maybe you're just not ready to be on camera yet. Get ready. You're going to need to do it. Okay, so providing that time for networking, it doesn't have to be all presentation all the time. You don't have to be pitching the whole time. That's not what you would do if you were in person. Joe, he has a family, talk to him. You can do that online, especially in smaller groups. So this does bring up one point. In this virtual world, in this, we're hopefully having a conversation here because I'm taking things that you're saying or typing and I'm talking about them. So this is a conversation technically, even though not many other people are speaking up. But this is a one lane conversation really. I can stop talking and any one of you can start talking, but we've got one lane of verbal traffic possible in this online event. If we were in a trade show actual space or a conference room and there were 10 of us around a table or gathered in a booth, well, that wouldn't follow the guidelines these days, but we could have side conversations. I could lean over to Eric and say, hey, did you check that out? Yeah, that's really cool. Okay. And then we're back to the presentation. Not doing that online. We've got the chat tool, so we can have that side comment. Hey, did you see that? Yeah, that's great, cool. You can still do that, but it's not the same as that in-person session. So smaller groups, having that time to have that conversation passed around the room, essentially. So if you go back to, I don't know, I had some public speaking classes that I took when I was in school. I had some other classes where, each person has a turn to go. Kind of got to think about it like that. So smaller groups help a ton with that so that you can keep that conversation lively without too much orchestration. Having a contest giveaway and show some videos. So it is possible to share video. I know Teams has a way to play back videos through content sharing as well. Zoom makes it pretty easy. And then there are some third-party softwares that you can use. So I'm just going to type a note next to this one. If you want to get real fancy with showing your videos, let me make that a different color. Ooh, that's a great color. So OBS is a software that I can use to work instead of my webcam. So I can say, okay, don't look at my webcam, look at OBS, and OBS just steps in and sends something else there. So I could play back a video for you, or I could do it through screen sharing and adjust some settings. But with tools like OBS, if you really have a lot of rich video content, OBS, it stands for Open Broadcasting Software. What it is essentially a software video switch like you'd use in a studio, like to switch from camera 1, camera 2, scene 1, scene 2. So a little bit more technology. It's not very hard to use. Even if you've never done something like that before, you can get something in place and play back a video. Lots of tips and so forth. So look into that. But for instance, again, Zoom has the option built in. I can play a video through screen sharing as well. I believe, I'm pretty certain that Teams has an option for smoothly playing back video, Screen share is really meant for still images, but for instance, Zoom has a modification, an option where I can switch to capturing the screen differently so that it plays video back more smoothly. But what about those contests and giveaways? You can still do that. How do we do that? How do we make a contest or giveaway successful in person? You can't just put the thing in their hands these days. So hopefully it's something that can be mailed or sent out, emailed, gift cards, gift cards. You don't need the physical gift card anymore. So contests and giveaways are absolutely viable still and highly encouraged. So let's give that one a check. Make it interactive with an activity. What kind of activity? Maybe put it in the chat. What kind of things are you looking at as far as activities? Leave lots of time for discussion. Yeah, we kind of talked about this one already. So we'll give that a check. Not all formal presentation. Absolutely agree with you. Doesn't have to be formal presentation. Okay, so hopefully you'll see. There's another one that came in. I'm gonna jump this one in here because I kind of mentioned something along this line. Walk onto the shop floor and perform an inspection. Sure, if you had somebody on site with you at your facilities, you could do that, but not at a trade show. So I mean, if we're speaking specifically about trade shows, but now, I mean, you could set up, a shop in your booth, of course. There's all sorts of things you can do at a trade show. Sometimes the most effective thing is to not do a bunch of stuff. Just have some couches out there that people can just relax at. Finally, a chance to sit down. Well, we're online, we're virtual now, so that's different. Can you walk onto the shop floor? Sure. Get your mobile device there. Join in from your smartphone. Maybe don't use the audio from that smartphone. Have somebody presenting from a different location that's quieter and have maybe the audio muted on the device, but the person can listen. Hopefully an earpiece so they can hear well. So with this camera, front-facing camera, I can get a really high-quality image into my meeting space, any platform that you can join from mobile. So then I could take that mobile device and I can be out on the shop floor. I can get up close to machinery. I can see the oil dripping if I need to, or hopefully not. I can see those tight welds. I can see, this is all performing properly. Check out these valves, they're so smooth. So you can get that demonstration with other tools. So mobile devices like smartphones and tablets can be great for that. Another thing is to consider, if you need to make this demonstration and you do it all the time, record it. Make a high quality video of it. Hey, you're not here on the shop floor, but I want to give you an idea of what our space looks like and some of the work that we do here. So here's a quick video tour. And you can talk over it and just tell people what they're seeing, or you can build that audio right into the video. I like to see videos that people narrate over. This is somebody live talking about it. Okay, what we're looking at here, and this is important. Now I'm going to pause the video because I really want you to notice this. You were talking about this earlier, and I want to show you that we've got that handled. Okay, so there's a lot of ways that you can make that demonstration happen. Not in such a hands-on way, of course, but it's in the realm of possibilities there. So making a pre-recorded video that's high quality that you could talk over or has built-in narration, or using a mobile device, a couple of examples there. So I'm going to call that a win for virtual events. Different, but similar. Okay, let me work up from here. And check my time too. Ooh, we're coming toward the end of our time. Let me get back into the chat. We did talk about gift cards and so forth. So giving out swag, very similar. In fact, there are companies out there that specialize in gift boxes for your virtual meetings now. Okay, so maybe there's a card in there that says, don't open until we tell you. Little surprise. you can definitely still give out the goods online. Okay, I think we hit everything else there functionally throughout today's session. I do want to say thank you to everybody, but we have a few more minutes left if there are any remaining questions. Shonda had said activities can include worksheets, answering questions, or icebreakers, brain teasers. I think that's all available to you online. I don't think you have to change a lot of that. I've worked with some groups where they're doing kind of a experiential session where they get a little deeper. And so maybe they go around and like make a poster and people go around and check off things on that poster. It's like, oh yeah, I identify with that. You know, even those sorts of things you can do using whiteboards and so forth online. So yeah, work out those activities. Think about reframing maybe those activities that you would normally do. How can we make this more effective online? There's also a lot of resources out there. If you look at, just do a Google search, workshop activities or trade show activities for online events or sales activities for online events or virtual events. You'll find a ton of information out there. So do a little bit of research and find those resources that you trust, you know, give them a quick look over. And if there are any specific questions, happy to take those offline. And we'll have a second session next week. So hopefully I'm going to see you all there too.
So Joshua, it's Eric here.
Hey, Eric.
So the mobile device for that to do the shop tour, they would just sign in as a separate email account or phone number to the meeting and just share that.
To join from another device?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I have this appointment on my calendar. So I joined it from my first computer to start it and host it, but then I use the same link to pop in from my other computer.
Okay.
So then I could look at my mobile device and then tap that same link. Now I'm in 3 times. I just want to make sure I'm not duplicating the audio because that's what creates that echo and feedback.
Okay. Yeah, I think one of the things that we're learning today is there's a lot about the tools that we have at hand that we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
That realizing, like when with the whiteboard piece and stuff you're showing today, is like, wow, there's a lot available I didn't know existed, and it's becoming familiar with those tools. I'm looking forward to next week's session. We can get a little more into the virtual trade show piece itself, but there was they had to back it up one step and go, here's what you can do though, and learn the tools. And then once we've gotten that underhand, okay, now we understand that. Well, the trade show piece is actually kind of easy.
I'm glad you think so.
Yeah, well, it will be.
They're getting out there. They're more and more, and the virtual trade shows and so forth. We're seeing them all the time now. So it's a big forced innovation, and folks, trust me, you're not the first people to go through this adaptation, and many, many, many more will be coming after you. So it's a good chance to kind of get in front of it and get those best practices out there, make yourself stand out. Okay, getting some positive feedback in the chat. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, it's and the open broadcast software, does that have the video switching in it, or is that just a playback piece?
Yeah, you can actually hook up multiple cameras to it. So I don't have it set up to do right now, but yeah, I can really put anything through my video feed instead of my video, whether it's pre-recorded content, a still image. If I want to do my slides through my video instead of through screen share, I can do that. So it's really open-ended. It doesn't have to be just playing back a video. You can actually use it to put in lower thirds and so forth, and some branding.
Okay.
Yeah, really opens up a lot of options, and it's really not that hard to use. If you can use a computer and know a little bit about audio and video, it's really accessible, and there's tons of tutorials on it as well.
Wow.
So just look up OBS and Teams, or the platform you want to use it with.
Okay. Well, thank you. I think we're right on the hour here.
Yeah, we are.
So thank you so much. And then the video, how does this video sharing work then after? So you archive it, and what happens?
I'm recording to the Zoom cloud, so I'll send you a link to the recording and you can share that out with others. But at the top right-hand corner, you can also download and archive that yourself locally. I'll leave it in our cloud recording for about 30 days. So once I send you the link, do download it. But in that 30 days, you folks can share the link around and watch it easily there, and you can download and do whatever you like with it.
Well, thank you. It's great to learn. Frankly, we're also just learning a lot about the tools you've had that we haven't clicked on every button out of absolute fear.
Got to get curious. Yeah, you're not going to blow up the world. Nobody's going to die if you click that button. That's
Well,
what they're there for.
Well, thank you. Looking forward to next week's session, and
Absolutely.
it's been great. The comments are great, and I think people are knowing a little more about what to expect, and we'll get a little more into the trade show piece itself. But thank you
Sounds
so
good.
much. And
All right,
where
my
are you,
pleasure.
for people to know, where are you actually located?
Oh, I'm joining you all the way from near Santa Barbara, California, a little town called Solvang.
There we go. Good to know.
We're global, international. All right, folks, enjoy your day. I can't wait to see you next week.
Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ooh, my end button doesn't want to stay in front of me. Well, there we go. See you guys.